Like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat on the way in, right? And so today, we're going to be talking about black women in particular getting to swirling, divesting, and black male misandry by accident. Dating outside of the black race for love, compared to black men who make very cold, calculated decisions to be misogynist towards black women, be anti-black women, be colorist and futurist, right? And generally run from black women because black men are making conscious decisions to date outside the race because of how horrible black men are. Black women, on the other hand, not so much, right? Black women are looking for love, they're looking for affection, they're looking for attention, they're looking for care, and somehow magically that causes them to date outside the race, right? So, um, I'm going to play Fab Socialism. Thank God she kind of made the same comment again, um, recently, right? And y'all give me a second. Give me 1 second. Don't know if you guys can hear me. So you have the brother Bahamian Cat. I think his channel name is Foreign Man in a Foreign Land, if I'm not mistaken. Last name James. I think Ransford James. I think Bahamian descent, Caribbean brother. So yeah. And he speaks to Fab Socialism on one of his videos, and she says something I recall her saying a little while ago about radical black women who somehow magically end up in relationships with white men, right? And it's very interesting how we frame the conversation when black women end up in interracial relationships with white men. Let's stop calling it just general interracial relationships. They're ending up in relationships primarily with white men. Let's be very clear. Yes, some Latino dudes, not so many Asian guys, but mainly white dudes, right? And much of that is also because of the white population in America, white male population being the most dominant, population in America. But that's not the only reason why. We already know this. And so I want to play this clip. It's going to be pretty loud of Fab Socialism, speaking to the brother, we'll just say Mr. James, um, about this, right? So let's get into it, and here we go, right? So this is Fab Socialism speaking on this, and hopefully you guys will be able to hear it.
Of different concerns. However, there are certain black women that do end up with white men, like a variety of different types of black women that do end up with white men. And it's just interesting. Like you can't even say that radical black women do it, and like uncritical conservative black women do. It's like a bunch of people for different reasons, and it's interesting. In real time, we're seeing people who have been hurt or who have been just so caught up in white supremacy, and then they're just making content, especially with black women. I think black women sometimes have to make the best of what they have in terms of if someone is really open to loving you in a way that isn't harmful, then who cares who that is? I hold space.
So you know, and to Mr. James' credit, he does touch on divestors a bit, right? But the way divestors are being framed is as a super extremist group of black women, very loud but very small. This is what FD Signifier kept on reiterating to me, right? Yeah, they're super loud, but they're super small. Now, this makes space for black women that just so happen to enter into, you know, interracial relationships with primarily white men. Don't you get it, Mr. Z? See, you black men are misogynistic and practice on black women. It's called misogynoir. So y'all practice misogynoir on black women. And y'all are colorists and featurists and sexist and misogynist. And don't you get it, Mr. Z? And then compared to, The black women, so black women are just looking for love and attention and care. And it's just different when black women, engage with white men compared to when black men engage with white women. Y'all are doing it because you ain't ish, black man. When black women engage in interracial relationships, they're also doing it because the black men ain't ish. Don't you get it? Black men date out because black men ain't ish. Black women date out because black men ain't ish, right? Black men date out because of misogynoir and colorism and featureism and texturism and their concepts of white supremacy. Black women date out because black men ain't ish and black men's colorism and featureism and texturism and black men's concept of white supremacy. Don't you get it? It always comes back to the black man and his horrible concepts and understanding of this society and of black women. You're just not empathetic enough. It's very interesting hearing black women speak about white men's empathy and openness while white women who divorce white men speak about how they're not empathetic and they're not open. Huh, interesting, right? Okay. So I'm going to also play Cat Black. So Cat Black, let me kind of lead with this. Cat Black, trans woman, but there's certain things that she says that I think are interesting and that need to be kind of dealt with in this conversation, right? So, bear with me. I understand. Um, so let's kind of play what she said. And here we go.
that content. And, a lot of it is kind of speaking directly to black women who were raised only to date black men, who are told that dating outside of your race is, the worst thing you could possibly do, and encouraging them to widen their options, to not limit themselves to just black men. So frequently, women are shamed out of making good choices for themselves. And sometimes, some black women do need to hear that maybe a good choice for you is to widen your dating pool to include more than just black men.
So, if we are to hear this correctly, right? And y'all give me a second. Yes, hopefully y'all can still hear me because I am on the going on the road right now. Yeah, so if we are to hear this correctly, black women are encouraged to date black men and discouraged to factor in their own interest. Now, this flies in the face of Dr. Jennifer Lundquist, right? White woman PhD, and Dr. Chantel Bugs, mixed woman PhD, in their findings, particularly of online dating, and online dating statistics that show women of color are really trying to get their interests met. That includes black women, and the men that they're more likely to respond to, that's women of color, including black women, is white men. So we have black women saying the reason they're dating out is because black men are that horrible. But then we have the white PhD and the mixed PhD, both women, saying actually it's because women of color put white masculinity and patriarchy, ooh, there go that nasty word, on a pedestal. Huh, huh, right? Looks like we got a problem here. So shout out to the brother, Mr. James, um, Cat Black, Fab Socialism. But in the black community, there's this persistent, pernicious talk of an underlying message, even when it's not overtly said, of black men harming black women knowingly, right? Harming black women and getting off on it, right? Doing everything they can to essentially be white patriarchs and doing a horrible job at it, mind you. And, when these black men come up on some resources, the first thing they want to do is run out the back door with the resources and go end up with a non-black woman At worst, at best, maybe a light-skinned black woman, racially ambiguous black woman, um, with closer to European phenotype, right? Closer to a European white woman standard. On the flip side, though, is the concept that when black women date out, right? So when black women date outside the race, they don't take none of these things into consideration. They don't think about patriarchy. They don't think about masculinity. They don't think about white men being, the richest demographic on the planet, definitely in America. They don't think about none of that. They're not doing it for status. They're not doing it for money. And as Ms. Cat Black is saying, black women are actually shamed into not doing these things for not looking out for their own interest. Actually, they're almost shamed to if they even consider dating a non-black man, excuse me. That's what we're told from women and I guess women adjacent people in this case, right? That's what we're told. So it's always this black women accidentally fell into swirling, accidentally fell into divesting, accidentally fell into misandry. It's not a cold calculated thought. It's not I have this status, I want a man with more. I have this money, I want a man with more. I have this education, I want a man with more. Somewhere we're stuck in this paradigm of life happening to women, right? Life happens to women. Men make very conscious choices. Women just get to it by happenstance. At least in their love life, in their sex lives. They don't make conscious decisions, right? And this is coming from the intersectional feminist side of the game, y'all. Black men are always the oppressors of black women. Black men always make conscious choices to harm black women or to leave black women destitute. Black women, on the other hand, no such thing. They're raised to be loyal to black men. They're raised to always defer to black men. They're raised to always look out for black men, right? Train tracks, train tracks, train tracks. Black women are always raised in that manner. You have to socialize them to consider self, to be self-interested. Black women are the only group of people that are not self-interested, particularly in America, according to Miss Cat Black. Mr. Z, you putting words in her mouth. How can you not infer that from what she's saying? Right? And the way Miss Fab Socialism is speaking is that black women just happen on dating outside of their race, because these men, they care about them. If they care about you, there's nothing wrong with it. But it more often than not is the white guy. How is it that all these women of color, not just black women, are coming up on pretty much ending up with the white guy and it's all love? The only time it's not is when y'all can find the most virulent, overt, in-your-face divestors who's screaming it from the rooftops aggressively as hell. And y'all are right, that's a small sliver. What you think, the other women are not on the same thing? They just more classy about it? All this talk about men of color, black men specifically, coming up on, dating outside the race very consciously. Right? Very consciously. But black women, not so much. Right? Black women, not so much. And using this kind of victimology to backdoor your way into doing what you wanted to do anyway. So black women are the only group of people not looking for status. So, let me get this better. Black women can be self-interested because for so long they haven't been. Black men, on the other hand, have always been self-interested, and we need to shame them for it because their self-interest comes at the harm of black women. Black men's self-interest harms black women. Black women's self-interest, is best for everyone, right? Isn't this what we get? Isn't this where intersectionality comes in? That if we do for black women, we automatically do for everyone else. We automatically elevate everyone else because black women are on the bottom. With no account for class, no account for education, no account for the fact that a lot of black women are already self-interested. And there are certain things that elevating black women will harm everyone else. Elevating black women might actually harm black men. Oh, I forgot. That's okay. Because black men's goal in life is to be a chocolate dip version of the white patriarch. You mean the same white patriarch that a lot of these black women are trying to get with? Ooh, and not just the divestors. Y'all finally acknowledging the divestors, but y'all make it seem like some loud fringe group and like a lot of black women, and according to Miss Cat Black, even black trans co-sign. It's interesting listening to Cat Black, a man transition into a woman, give a pass to the divestors. Now, later on, she does speak about, how white men have harmed her just as much as black men have, right? And like putting white men on this pedestal is probably not smart. She does. To be fair, she does. She does. Right? But you listen to all of that. It's interesting. Look how empathetic we can be to black girls and women. Look how empathetic we can be. We enter the conversation with men and boys, particularly black men and boys, harsh as hell, mean as hell, crass and rude as hell. But we enter the conversation with the women soft-handed, empathetic, sympathetic, right? Look at that. You know, and y'all like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. So the reason why I'm covering this is to say, we're gonna have brothers, and I've listened to a couple of Rob, I think Ranford James videos, and Caribbean brother, Bahamian descent, spent some time in the U.S. Some 10 years. So he says, and he actually has a video speaking about ADOS FBA that I listened to. I think it was okay, and I actually want to review that also. But if we're gonna have people speaking about, the kind of back and forth between men and women, particularly in the black community, and patriarchy, and not be honest that there are black women that are longing for what they think white women have in majority. Now we know it's really like the top 20%, really the top 10%, really the top 5%, really the top 1% of white women have. We're doing a grave disservice in not being honest about how many women of color, particularly black women, want this thing. We're being extremely dishonest about how many want it. Now, divestors are loud about it, right? But there's a lot of black women that want this lifestyle. They want to be pampered. They want to be kept, right? And we're doing a really grave disservice to the conversation by not being honest that this is not all. Black men are messing up. Black men are not on my level. Let me date out. Ooh, look, I just accidentally ended up with a white man. Right? I just accidentally ended up with a white man. And thank you, Jay Jones, for the super sticker. Right? The question always gets to, how is it that black men are chastised for making this supposed very conscious, very calculated choice to date outside their race, right? But black women not. So when black women were doing the whole passport thing in the 80s and 90s, it was because black men ain't ish. Black men start talking about it and make it a thing, in the 2020s. And I know the documentary from the early aughts, right? I know, but they really start making it a pop culture reference in the 2020s, and it's all hell. Black women had whole movies about this. They have something new. They have how Stella got her groove back. So passport girls and dating outside your race and treating it like it's revolutionary. When weren't black women getting D from white guys? When wasn't that not a thing in American history? Okay, it doesn't count for slavery. Fine. Jim Crow. Fine, they were under duress. Okay. 1967, Loving versus Virginia. After that, when have black women not be getting D from white guys? When? I said Jay Jones. My bad, brother. Jay Bones. Right? My bad. Thank you for the super sticker. Right? Right? So we have these people, you know, critiquing culture, putting out their think pieces, analyzing, and they're putting the thumb on the scales for the women always. They might do a little tacit sideways talk of, yeah, I kind of understand some of the men, this, that, for like all of 5 seconds, and then everything else goes back. And this is what happens when you look at everything through an intersectional feminist lens. You cannot accurately give the men the time of day they need. You can't give them the empathy they need because, quite frankly, and if we're going to be honest, it's a zero-sum game. Well, it's not supposed to be that, Mr. Z. Yeah, and it is. The women walked in the door telling you that. You know, train tracks, train tracks, train tracks. The women walked in the door telling you it was a zero-sum game. And every time you even open your mouth to say anything sympathetic or empathetic about the men or how we have to do for the men, the women are like, hell no. This is how you get so many women going against my brother's keeper with Barack Obama and torpedoing that knowingly. The women are telling you it's a zero-sum game, and we got the brother FD signifier, and we got the brother Mr. James, and we have there's a couple of other brothers they you know hang around with that's loosely part of that black bread tube space, right? I'm thinking about two different brothers with dreads, right? One of them I've engaged with online before. The other one I've watched some of his content. I haven't engaged with so much. And you want to know, okay, you want to know why black men are becoming more and more despondent. Men in general in the West are becoming more and more despondent, but black men specifically, because even when y'all address their issues, you do a little patty cake addressing their issues, and then that intersectional feminist lens that always means that we defer to how black women view the world. We end up chastising the men at worst, and at best doing a little tacit. Okay, maybe you have a point, kind of, sort of, teeny tiny bit over here, but could you quiet down? Could you not say it like this? Could you think about the women's feelings? Did the women care about our feelings over the past 50 years? The brother FD already know the answer to that. Did it look like the women gave a F about black men's feelings over the past 50 years? Black women we're talking about. They went out of their way to talk crap about black men everywhere they went, particularly on the media. In the media, excuse me. But yet, we got to be tone police. And even when you address what we're saying, you spend half a second on it, give a little tacit, like, okay, yeah, I kind of see where you're coming from, maybe kind of sort of with this. Right? So now we getting fab socialism and cat black included in the conversation. Right? so that they could both say, "Well, I kind of see I kind of see where the black women are coming from, with their ideas and their standards. The men, black men, not so much. You know." So black women are open to find love. So when black women date out, they're looking for love. They're looking for love when they date out. They're looking to be cared for when they date out. Black men, on the other hand, an agenda. You looking for the European beauty standard. You don't want to ride out with black women, right? You're running from black women, right? And let me play this clip real quick before I read Big Kev's comment. Let me play this one more time for y'all. At least one more time, at least, right? Y'all give me 1 second. And here we go. All right.
Of different concerns. However, there are certain like black women that do end up with white men, like a variety of different types of black women that do end up with white men. And it's just interesting. Like you can't even say that radical black women do and then like uncritical conservative black women do. It's like a bunch of people for different reasons. And it's interesting. In real time, we're seeing people who have been hurt or who have been like just so caught up in white supremacy, and then they're just making content, especially with black women. I think like black women sometimes have to make the best of what they have in terms of like if someone is really open to like loving you in a way that isn't like harmful, then who cares who that is? I hold space.
Black women have to make the best of what they have. Black women have to make the best of what they have. You see how empathetic that is? We already know what implicitly it's saying, right? Black men ain't ish. Black women got to make the best of what they have. So dating out, maybe you might have to do that. So being in relationship with black men is it's a lot of work. Being in relationship with black women, that's patty cake. That's nothing, right? Be Black women have to make the best of what they have. And I don't have a big issue with fab socialism, even though I listen to her occasionally. But this take, right? We refuse to admit that the women, many of them are hypocrites, and they're against patriarchy, but not really. Goddamn. Mr. Z be pulling his headphone out all the time, right? Let me say it again. They're against patriarchy, but not really. They're rhetorically against patriarchy, but not really. They do a lot of talk, but they're not really about it. They're anti-white supremacy, but then they get with white liberal and white conservative men. If they can, they try to get with the dudes with the money and the status and all the type of dudes that they rail against. Think about the white feminist that's living off of her man's money, the white feminist that's married in a nuclear family that's living off of her husband's money, and just paint her black. Oops. But you remember, black women got to do the best for what they got, with what they have. How insulting is that to always come back to, I kind of see where the women are coming from. The men, on the other hand, right? And so Big Kev says the HBO series Insecure and its 80-90% realistic of black men indirectly showed how most of black, quote, black breadtube is lying about straight black men's misogynoir. But you know what this really is? It's who holds the purse strings and who they deem as less threatening and who would they rather have around them. They would rather have neither black men or black women around them, to be honest. But who holds the purse strings? White men and white women in academia. Who holds the purse strings? White men and white women in Hollywood. Who holds the purse strings? White men and white women in corporate America. Who do they deem as less threatening? Mm, now we starting to get into social dominance order, and nobody want to have that conversation. So, and this is me answering Big Kev. So, if they might deem black women less threatening, hyphenated black people like black trans people less threatening, particularly black trans men that transition to women. Mm, right? And if that's, you know, told to you over and over again, right? Right? If that's implied to you and suggested to you throughout your life, you know what lane to go in. Nobody has to overtly tell you. Nobody has to overtly tell us. We know. We know what this society deems as less threatening to the white power structure. We're not talking about black people. So of course you're gonna put out media, oftentimes, all the times, showing the angry black buck in relationship with black women. The jealous, angry black man who's jealous of educated black women. The black man whose goal in life is to bed a white woman or the closest thing to a white woman, right? The educated black man, the first thing he wants to do is bed a black woman. I mean, excuse me, bed a white woman. The other less educated black men are stuck in the black community with nice, kind, generous, loving black women, but he's an a-hole. He's mean, he's sexist. That is how it's framed. Because who holds the purse strings and what message do they want to see? I even think we've gotten so far into that, it's now it's just roaming it on its own. Right? Now it's roaming on its own. This type of talk is being propelled by its own energy. And no, once again, it's not just the divestors. It's not just the loudest, angriest, meanest, you know, pretty much black women neo Nazis. And let's play again what Cat Black said. And I see PK said, oh, that audio, that's some bad quality. Look, Mr. Z is working on Velcro budget, right? Mr. Z is working with a shoestring budget with spit and gum. Okay. Okay, so let me play this next clip for you guys.
And a lot of it is kind of speaking directly to black women who are raised only to date black men, who are told that dating outside of your race is, the worst thing you could possibly do, and encouraging them to widen their options, to not limit themselves to just black men. So frequently, women are shamed out of making good choices for themselves. And sometimes some black women do need to hear that maybe a good choice for you is to widen your dating pool to include more than just black men.
Black women have to be encouraged to date outside of their race. You hear this? Black women need to be told by some black women need to be told to expand their options and to date out of their race. I'm in my mid 30s. I don't know when black women didn't think that dating outside of their race wasn't an option. As a matter of fact, they're delusional about it, actually. Right? And like I said before, Cat Black comes in on the other side of a bit of commentary from Mr. James, but saying, the white worship thing and the fact that white men won't harm you is actually kind of not true. So I got to give her space because she actually did say that. But this commentary right here about, white black women need to be convinced or told, expand your black like, we have to be honest about how racist white men are and how anti-black they are in particular. I know, like, people hear me harping on this all the time, and they're like, "What is your thing about this?" The whole idea that black women need to be told, no, black women already know. They're engaging with white men, or they're trying to, and they're running into the wall of white men not being interested. Now they'll come back to the black community on some, oh, we're loyal. No, the insider article exposed what it really is. Y'all are on these college campuses, and then white dudes are telling you, y'all gotta run through hoops and beat a bust down before they can even consider it. And that's pretty much all they see many black women as. Something to do and knock off a checklist. So that's why y'all keep on hearing Mr. Z harp on about this. Because if we're not honest and let me say it, force black women to be honest about this, then they're going to continue to talk like, yeah, the problem is we need to expand our options. Your options are as expanded as they can possibly get. Y'all are having sex with the white dude. Like I always say, when it's time to put a ring on fingers, that's when people feelings start getting hurt. But nobody want to have that conversation. So we have a bunch of lefties once again having this conversation, right? Doing half a second talk, right? 30-second talk on divestors and swirlers and how black women might get to the place of dating outside their race. And it always comes back to, well, black men date out because black men are horrible. Black women date out because black men are horrible. It always comes back down to that. Black men make very conscious choices. Black women have no choice but to date out. The black women that date out have no choice but to date out. Black men have all the choices in the world in black women. They just choose to date out because they're sexist, misogynoir pigs. And this is what passes as like great commentary, oftentimes on the left. Right? Conservative black women and radical leftist black women somehow magically come to the same point. White ice is colder. The white man's ice is colder. Now, they may not disagree on pretty much anything else, but one thing they do agree on, whether they're staunch conservatives or radical leftists, is the white man's ice is colder. Right? De Blasio's wife, right? I'm lesbian up until the white man walk in the room. Now I'm a straight black woman and I got 2 kids. Right? And y'all give me a second. I'm gonna pause right here for a second. Y'all talk amongst yourselves. I'll be right back. And so I'm back. Um, this is a thing. If the left ever hopes to stop losing and shedding men, this is something you're gonna have to address. Women's Hypergamy. Ooh, y'all don't like talking about that. Which y'all affectionately call assortative mating. Call a thing a thing. It's women's hypergamy. Y'all could use the euphemistic talk of assortative mating all you want. It ain't men. It's women. Right? And women have decided, through their neoliberal lens, that white men's ice is colder. White women have decided that. Asian women have decided that. Latina women have decided that. And yes, even black women have decided that. The only difference is that in our society, we never speak about black women like they're already self-interested. They don't need to be encouraged to be self-interested. They are already self-interested. They're just running into the wall that Latino men, Asian men, and white men don't see them the way they see themselves. And no, that's not black men's fault. Right? And no, that is not black men's fault. No, Miss Cat Black, black women don't need to be encouraged to date outside their race, because if they could, they would. If they could, they would. Into Miss Fab's socialism, the radical lefty black women that's ended up in relationships with white men, half of them don't actually mean it. It's some class talk. It really is hidden behind some class talk and education talk. My status, my level, and I'm really radical on talking against black men. Let's be very clear. A lot of these lefty black women got a whole lot of crap to talk about negatively about black straight men. Most of their energy is directed negatively towards black straight men, and they occasionally tacitly talk about white supremacy and capitalism. But somehow black men are going to be bought in for how black men participate in capitalism and how black men aspire to be white patriarchs. We ain't never going to talk about the black women that aspire to be white, upper middle class, and rich white women. We're never going to talk about those black women, which is way more than y'all like to talk about. Okay, all right. Okay, I hear you. Right? This is not sustainable. This is not sustainable. The over critique, even from the left, the heavy handedness at which we go to men, because y'all not accurately and adequately adhering to intersectional feminists. This is why they got all the smoke for black men. They got all the smoke for black men because black men won't adhere to an ideology that erases them. Oops. An ideology that says you don't got it that bad. You ain't a black woman. You want to know who got it that bad? Black women do. I mean, what's really your issue? Police brutality. What's really your issue? Right? Incarceration. Outside of that, do you really even suffer, black man? Maybe your issue is that you suffer because you're trying too bad to be masculine. Oops. Right? Maybe that's really your issue. You're trying too hard to be masculine. Leave that for the white dudes with some money and status, and the black dudes, the elite black dudes, and other men of color. Leave that for them. You everyday regular black dudes, try being a little more feminine. This is where the talk of emotional intelligence come in, right? Try being softer. How about you engage in some same-sex relationship while you at it? Or maybe a trans person. Leave all that heterosexual sexuality and all that patriarchy, which we're not going to call patriarchy because it hurts our feelings as women that's aspiring to be elites. So we end up with the elite white man who actually has all the patriarchy. Leave that for the elite white men. And maybe the uber rich black men that get to play in that game. All you poor and working class black men, stop it. You know you can't afford it. Stop. Go end up in your broken families, right? With the women that don't want to get married, or the women that's going to get married to you and divorce you in 5 years because you left the toilet seat up one too many times and you're not rich. Go end up in um interesting LGBTQ type relationships. Go do that. Leave the patriarchy for the white man. Once again, although we won't call it that when we're engaging with them in that, because we don't want to hurt our feelings. We don't actually want to show that that's really what we want, even though we're talking a whole lot about it negatively. We're talking about it negatively, but secretly we kind of want that. Who said in the black manosphere? Patriarchy to women's, excuse me, patriarchy to women's specifications, right? And big game says you have, what do you say? You have to try to get a hold of Renethia Tate's book. She was on the cows a couple times. It revealed a lot. I'm sure you could bring out a lot from her book. Is that the one that um she did an interview with Gus T Renegade, and she started off like she was on some like cooning thing, and she started off with the fake Valley Girl voice and love is love, and then she switched up and became like more genuine and like really was more honest later on. Is that the same one? Like she started off like she was a swirler. She was kind of putting on an act, and then she switched up and was. Is that the same one you're speaking about? Get big game, right? Ooh, ooh, this comment right here. Goat check. Ooh, it's basically the white man's burden, but for black women. Ooh, put it in the book. But I mean, shout out to Dr. Tommy Curry and Dr. T. Hassan Johnson. We already said it. Black women have been designated as the colonizing agent of the black community. And when I said that to the brother FD Signifier, he didn't disagree. He didn't disagree. There's a lot. The question is, we have to ask this question, right? If we live in a white supremacist anti-black society, right? Why did white society choose which group of people in the black community they would rather deal with? Now, once again, I will say I think they would rather deal with neither one of us. But why did they choose black women? Why did they choose black women in academia? Ooh. Why did they choose to? You got the Democratic Party very clearly said black women are the backbone of the Democratic Party. Huh. They're telling you straight up. So for all the black women, oh, we're not the chosen. You have to ask yourself why they choose it. See, Mr. Z, you know, being around white folks, working with white folks, particularly a few years ago, had to really ask myself, huh, why would they rather talk to me than everybody else? When Trayvon was killed, why would they rather talk to me? When not Jordan Russell Davis, but Michael Brown was killed, why would they rather talk to me? Yes, it's the way I dress and how articulate I am, but because they think I'm the safe Negro, particularly because of the way I dress and the way I speak. They thought I was gonna say something that I wasn't gonna say. Oh, they messed up. You should have chose the dudes in the foul room, right? So, this is something that, and Fab Socialism grappled with it for all of 5 seconds from what I saw. Maybe she's spoken more in depth about this, about radical black women ending up with white dudes. Because when she first said it on a video a little while ago, she said it in a question form, and she said like that's something we have to investigate. Why are all these radical black women with white dudes? Because they don't mean half the stuff they're saying. Number one, but like I said, she said it in a question form. Then you have right, Cat Black. We have to be like honest. Like black women are self-interested. Black women want to date out too. It's just the white guys are that racist. Cat Black, you should know. And Cat Black sexuality and whatever. That's neither here nor there. But you should know, right? And Cat Black does the whole, well, the black men that I've dealt with, and she accounts for the fact that she's trans or whatever. They only want to come and see. They ignore her phone calls. They don't call her, but then they want to come through at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, where the white guys are way more, honest up front. Once again, another black woman on this. The black men just take relationships with black women so much more seriously. They treat us like we're special. They treat us like we're special. They're way more serious, way more mature. The black guys, on the other hand, not so much. Meanwhile, black frat bro culture don't got nothing on white frat bros. Not a nothing. Meanwhile, white men are out here just as much, if not more, than black men. God forbid you get a charismatic, good-looking white man, excuse me, that's upper middle class and a bachelor. Who isn't he having sex with? But somehow, black men are just, they're not as mature, or, they're not. The left got some. All right, the left. Just stop pretending like you care about men. Just become the party of women, become the political side of women, and call it a day. Y'all could stop acting, particularly in the black left. Stop acting like y'all care about the boys and the men. No, you just want the boys and the men. Like white society's trying to turn black women into de facto white girls and white women. If y'all didn't realize that already, could y'all just say y'all just trying to turn black men into de facto black women? Which in a weird way is actually turning them into de facto white girls and women. Y'all want black men to have the sensibilities of white girls and women? Maybe y'all don't see what's going on. But y'all are not dumb. Y'all realize y'all notice who Mr. Z speaks about, whether it's on the divestor swirler side or the black left. It's not dummies. These are often very educated people, even intelligent people outside of their education. But that agenda and that purposely ignoring something because of your agenda and playing something down because of your agenda, oh, that's a problem. Deadly Shells, I can't disagree with this. And Deadly Shell says, I've said before, Mr. Z, they're just mad that black men have more options despite being, quote, bottom tier in their eyes. Yeah, a lot of that is really that. Don't ever actually expect them to say it out loud. Don't ever actually expect them to say that out loud. The white guys will say it out loud occasionally. How in the hell is Tyrone able to have sex with some white women, even some okay and nice looking white women, even though we purposely kept our foot on his neck? Every once in a while, white men will slip up and say it. Black women, don't ever expect them to say, how is it that are equally educated, equally, on the looks level, black guy and a black woman, the black guy is more likely to get a Latina or a white woman or possibly even an Asian woman, and the black woman is even hard pressed to get even a equally situated black man, right? And look at gender war lore. I saw it in college and high school. All but two are doubling back on their pro black wave. So let me get this right. What you're saying is they went off and did the whole white thing, and now they're trying to come back to the black thing. But Cat Black is over here telling us, some black women need to be told, to expand their options. Expand their options. Go to college for 4 years. Go be the bust down for the whole frat team. For the whole frat bros, the fraternity white dudes. Then come back to the hood after your 4 or 5 years of college and act like you don't mess with white people and you never dated no white dude and you lure the black men. Yeah, that's it. Hope that hope that word never comes out that you were that chick for them white dudes when you were in college. Oh, he said multiracial, Asian, Hispanic, and white. Oof. Texas. Ugh. But Cat Black telling us some black women need to be told that they don't have to be loyal to black men. They're not limited to black men. Once again, y'all gotta go talk to the white guys about that. This is out of black women's hands and out of black men's hands. Y'all gotta go talk to the other non-black men about expanding their options to include black women. And there's a lot of black women that's gonna get their little feelings hurt when you see white men say, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, you're right," and then you look at their dating history 5, 10 years later, and it still ain't no black women in there. Black men, excuse me, white men been knowing. They know. They hear you, right? So on that note, let me close this out. It's about to be an hour. Excuse me. Um, I don't have anything negative to say about these people per se. Um, but I think they really do a disservice to the conversation by being so soft with having a conversation about black women's interest, black women dating outside of the black race, um, black women's hypergamy, or how they're able to practice hypergamy if they're able, and what that looks like, right? I think I think um James, that's his last name. I think Cat Black. I think Fab Socialism. It's interesting how empathetic and sympathetic we are to black women dating outside of the black race. And then what that implies when you're so sympathetic and empathetic, particularly to black women. And if you don't realize what that implies, it implies I can understand why you date out because black men are that horrible. By the way, Cat Black and Fab Socialism, you don't have to say it. You don't have to say that. Just the way how empathetic you are says that. It's interesting how we critique black men and dating out and how it's framed, right? And how we don't have that same critique for black women, short of very loud swirlers and divestors, and maybe black women in luxury. Because if you're looking for luxury in a particular way, you're probably going to end up with a white dude, right? And RO says, can you speak to the fact that black men typically get for better quality dating out compared to the quality black women get last 100s when they date out? Look, to be honest with you, that's a gamble on both. I think I think black people truly I think people of color. I'm not even gonna say just black people. Because this reminds me of some of what Mindy Kaling was kind of getting to. Black people really think, and other people of color really think that, you know what, my group, my ethnic background, my race doesn't appreciate these features, so I'm gonna see if I can date up when I go to the white race. And if I can't get white men or white women, then maybe another group of color, right? It really is this. It really is everybody trying to get the best bang for their buck. Pun intended, right? It really is people saying, well, I'm not valued. I don't feel valued in my community the way I think I should be. So I'm going to date out, right? But what we're saying, the way we say it is, well, the first compliment I ever got about my features was from a white man. So the boys in high school that liked you don't count. The boys that liked you in middle school don't count, right? None of that counts, right? None of that counts, right? This is true, right? And RO says white men have never said black women were a better quality of women than other women. They don't talk. White men don't talk like that. They don't think like that, and they don't talk like that, right? They don't think like that. Ke- Kevin Miller came with a comment right here. Black women are going to keep getting Jack Harlowed, and it's easy. It's easy if you're a black man and you've been anywhere near black people, black women. You realize how desperate they are for the approval of particularly non-black men, particularly white men, right? And having a white man find them attractive, date them, potentially marry them it is a status jump. And we have to be honest about the fact that it's not just swirlers and divestors that's looking to get their status from a white husband, a white boyfriend, a mixed kid from a white man of prominence and note. Maybe not even so much of prominence and note. That's why they were acting the way they acted when they, oh my God, Machine Gun Kelly has a mixed kid. Oh my God, Chet Hanks has a mixed kid. And what does that mean about you and your life, right? So this is something for the brother James to think about, something for, Fab Socialism to think about, Cat Black to think about. This very empathetic way we speak about black women who date out, whether you realize it or not, implies that, yeah, I kind of get it. Black men really ain't ish. You right. It's not about just expanding your options. That's why I brought up Dr. Jennifer Lundquist. Women of color are chasing after white peen for validation, for status, for money. And that's something that women of color are going to have to come to terms with. That's not a man of color problem. That's a women of color problem that all of you women of color, particularly on the left, are trying to tie yourselves into pretzels not addressing. Even some of you brothers on the left don't want to address it. FD, James, y'all, if y'all even go anywhere near it, y'all spill like half a second touching on it and then fly back away. Move as far away from it as you possibly can. Right? This is something y'all really got to address. I've really got to pin down because this is not this is not sustainable, you know. And I'm also going through um Obsidian's conversation with the doctor that he had maybe 4 days ago now, 4 or 5 days ago, maybe 3 days ago, something like that. And like the doctor said, I see black women being more single. I see more single people. I see, and it's not just going to be, it's going to be single people in general. It's not just going to be black women and black men, but black women are going to be extra super single. And we know what that's going to look like. That's not, men are going to do very overt things that might be harmful to society. Women are going to do harmful things for society too. Don't think that they're just going to keep that internalized. You got another thing coming if you think she's just going to, drown herself in pills and maybe overdose and pass or something. No, no, no. That's gonna be the lady you got to deal with at the DMV when you go bring something to the post office, when you're in the fast food line, when you at the bank, right? Your stewardess, when you're at the airport. That if you think they're not gonna make your life hell because they're single and miserable, it's just gonna be men, particularly black men, on some angry stuff. You got another thing coming, right? And RO says, "Wow, you just said something. Black women don't feel validated as a woman or see herself in the best light unless given approval and sexual blessing of white men. Then all of a sudden she is superwoman. That's a woman of color thing, brother. Certain black women are just the loudest about it. That's a woman of color thing. Nobody has truly, one thing we haven't done in the West is had a real conversation about what colonialization did to the minds of women of color. What did white supremacy do to the minds of women of color, particularly women of color that live in those countries, that live in France, that live in Germany, that live in Britain, that live in America, that live in Canada, that live in Norway, that live in Belgium, not Norway, Belgium, right? That live in Spain, that live in Portugal. We haven't had an honest conversation about how black women that live in these places, how they think, how Latinas think, how Asians think, people of color or of different ethnicities that live in these predominantly white countries, how do they think? Women of color, particularly, about gender dynamics, about sexuality, about status, and all that other good stuff. We haven't had that conversation. And they don't want to have that conversation, to be frank. It's going to look real ugly real fast. Spain Man, you feel me? And Spain Man says you can look around now and see that everything in the media is about making black women attractive to white men. And it's not working. It's not working. If it was working, then so many black women wouldn't be complaining. If it was working, then you wouldn't have the insider article. If it was working, you wouldn't have Canadians, all of them chasing after white dudes. I played it on my dating racism video. All of them chasing after white dudes. All of them, straight or gay, woman or man. All of them chase. Well, yeah, pretty much chasing after white people, but white men in particular. It's not working. But for black women in particular, it's not working. You're gonna have to the whole reason you want to be with white men, you're gonna have to tear down that reason first and then get them. And that would fly in the face of why you want them. You would have to tear down white supremacy first to get the white man, but then that would defeat the purpose of why you want the white man in the first place. You want him for the status. You want him for the money. You want him for the prestige. You want him to throw in your light-skinned cousin face that grandma liked better. Oops. You want to throw him in the face of the black dude that overlooked you in high school. Oops. You want to use him as a status symbol. But you would have to tear down white supremacy before you could do that in any significant number, which would defeat the whole purpose of being with him in the first place. Right? For him to expand the way he thinks about black women in particular, you would have to tear down white supremacy. Because he's not going to keep white supremacy and then also date and not even just date, but marry black women in any significant number. White men, that's not going to happen with white men. It ain't going to happen with Latino men. It's not going to happen with Asian men. For you to have access to these men in any real significant number, you're going to have to not just attack the European beauty standard, because that rests on white supremacy. You're going to have to tear down where white men sit. That where white men sit, you're going to have to tear that down. And let's be honest, you're not going to do it. First of all, do you even have the tools and the wherewithal to do it? Right? So on that note, Mr. Zio in right here. Love, peace, and chicken grease. Y'all have a great rest of y'all night. Um, damn, look, shout out to Fab Socialism, Cat Black, the brother James, Ransford, I think was his first name. Um, and he has his channel is interesting. I'm gonna check out more videos. I think I've been through 3 or 4 now. Um, not even on his personal channel, but on his channel. What is it called? Um, God, I forgot the name of the channel. It's a pretty long name, but Foreign Man in a Foreign Land, I think was the name of it. Something like that, right? I think that's the name of the channel. So, you know, like I said, keep on saying, just prepare to see more and more women single. This is going, millennials and Gen Z are going to make what extra women were going through with their, what or are going through right now being single and not happy. They're going to make that look like a joke. They're going to, millennial women and Gen Z women are going to make what extra women are going through right now look like a joke, because they're not budging. That's like the dude that was sitting next to Rolo, when he was talking to Richard Reeves. The women are staunch. They're not budging. They're not budging. And that's something that Cat Black, and going back to the black community, Cat Black, Fab Socialism, all the lefties, Kim, well, not even Kim, because Kim is perfectly okay with watching these women be miserable and single for her jihad against black men, right? But for all of you that actually care, Juicy, right? Well, Juicy is telling them to pretty much, lean on other people in your network. Stop putting all your stock on romantic relationships. Yeah, that ain't gonna stop the misery, right? And on that note, let me truly pause right here. So, love, peace, and chicken grease. Let me pause right here. Y'all go check out other Black Manosphere content, other non-Manosphere content. Oh yeah, so y'all don't sound like these people. And I will end this out right here. Um, have a good rest of y'all night. Yeah. All right, everybody. Y'all have a great rest of y'all night. Mr. Z out.